Hello, I'm Tim Dodge, IAVNI's Assistant Vice President for Research, and I want to talk to you about some recent changes to New York Insurance Regulation 79, which is the regulation that requires insurance companies to inspect many of the automobiles that they insure. There have been some changes to this regulation made recently. The New York State Department of Financial Services announced a number of changes at the end of last year, and they all took effect on April 1st of 2015. And so the purpose of this video is to explain to you the major changes that affect you and your clients. Some of the changes in the regulation really affect the insurance companies more than they do you or your clients. So I want to focus just on the ones that really are going to have particular impact on you. The first thing I want to mention is that the definition of insured in the regulation has changed. It used to say that the regulation, the inspection requirement, applied just to the named insured as shown on the declarations. The DFS has expanded that to include resident family members, and it's very much like the definition that you see in the ISO personal auto policy of family member. So if you have a child still living at home who has their own vehicle, they would be bound by the requirements of the regulation as they apply to your policy, assuming that individual is insured under your policy or your client's policy. So now the definition of insureds includes family members. Also, as with the prior version of the regulation, insurers can waive inspections under some circumstances. They don't have to. There's only two situations where they have to waive inspections, and they're rare. That's where you're leasing a vehicle, or you're using a non-owned vehicle as a temporary substitute. There are several other situations where the insurance company has the option of waiving the inspection altogether. One of them is actually a fairly significant benefit for insureds. It used to be that if an insurance company had continuously provided coverage for an insured for 4 years, and that insured purchased a replacement vehicle, like taking one off, putting a new one on, that the insurance company could waive the inspection as long as they had been insuring that person for 4 years. Well, the DFS has dropped that requirement down to only 2 years. So if you have somebody who has been with Safeco since 2013, this is now 2015, and that person takes a vehicle off and puts a new one on, the carrier could conceivably waive that inspection. Again, it would be Safeco's option, but they have the ability to do that under the regulation. Used to be 4 years, now it's only 2. With regard to book rollovers, the insurer can waive the inspection if the previous insurer had physically inspected the vehicle and the insured has consented to having their coverage moved to the new carrier as part of the book rollover. So if there was an inspection already done, and now you as an independent agent are moving an entire book over from one carrier to another, the new carrier, as long as they can verify that the inspection was done by the previous carrier, they can waive all those inspections for the policies that are part of the book rollover. The insurer now has a lot of flexibility as to when they can do the inspection. There's a certain section of the regulation that applies to deferrals of inspection. So even if they're not going to waive the inspection, they can defer it. Well, the deferral period used to be no more than 5 days after the effective date of coverage. Under the new version of the regulation, the insurer can inspect anytime from 10 days before the coverage effective date to 14 calendar days after. So if, for example, your client is buying a vehicle from a private individual and they're not actually going to take ownership, they're not going to re-register it for another week. Maybe they've got to arrange their loan or something like that. But they've signed an agreement to buy the vehicle. They could have that vehicle taken to the inspection site and have the inspection done, as much as 10 days before the effective date of coverage, and the insurer can take care of it then, or they can defer it for up to 14 days rather than 5 after the effective date of coverage. So there's a lot more flexibility there for insurers, and obviously that flexibility is going to help your clients as well. Insurers still have to give their insurers notice that there is an inspection requirement. Not everybody knows this. Not everybody who buys, registers a car knows that they have to have their car inspected. So carriers still have to give that notice, but it used to be only by mail. Now they can do it by phone, including an automated phone system. They could get one of those robocalls at home informing you you've just asked for coverage on this car, you need to get it inspected by such and such a date, and here's where you can do it. They can do that by automated phone system, and they can do it over the internet. So the carriers now have some modern technology options for delivering those notices. But if the insured doesn't acknowledge receipt of the notice either by the automated phone call or by an email or what have you, then the insurer is required to actually try and get a hold of the person by phone and actually tell them personally, you're running out of time here. If you want to keep coverage in force on your car, you need to get it inspected. Here's where you can do it. Interestingly, if the insurer has provided coverage for at least the 12 months prior, they can automatically cover a replacement vehicle for 5 days without the insured even having to ask for it. So, I've had my policy in effect since June of 2014, and I'm taking a car off and I'm putting a new one on. And I haven't even told the insurance company about it yet. The old car had comp and collision on it. I got a loan out on the new one, so I got to have comp and collision on that. Automatic coverage for 5 days without me even telling the insurance company about it. And then, at the end of those 5 days, that's when the notice requirement kicks in, that's when the deferral period kicks in. So, 5 days automatic coverage and then another 10 days to actually get the inspection done. So, under the old rules, you had to get that inspection done within 5 days of the effective date of coverage. Under the new rules, it could be conceivably 15 days. 5 days of automatic coverage and a 10-day deferral period. So, again, a lot more leeway for the insurers and a little bit easier for the insurer to get it done. Instead of having to cram it into a short 5-day period, now they've got as much as a couple of weeks to get it done, and hopefully most people would be able to comply with it during that kind of time frame. One kind of technical change to the regulation, I think most inspection services have been using digital photography for many years now. The regulation never specifically said that they could do that, although I don't think anyone ever complained. But now the regulation actually specifies that they can use digital photography, or they can use film if they're still doing that. The insurer has to give the insured a printed copy of the inspection report once the inspection is completed. If the insured fails to get the car inspected by the end of the insurance deferral period, whatever that may happen to be, again, they can defer it for up to 10 days. Coverage has to be suspended after the 10th day following the effective date of coverage. So that used to be 5 days. So again, now they've doubled the period for you to get that inspection done. So if I add a car on June 1st and I don't get it inspected, and the insurance company has sent all the requisite notices and stuff, and I still didn't get it done, coverage can be suspended starting on June 11th, so 10 days later. Another interesting subtle change to the regulation, again, notices used to have to be sent by mail. There used to have to be a mailing certificate and all this sort of thing. The regulation now says in more than one place, notices can be mailed, delivered, or otherwise transmitted. So that certainly implies using email, automated phone messaging, and all those other sorts of modern ways. Faxing, they could conceivably fax the notice to somebody. So the regulation specifically allows for these things. The insurer does have to keep some kind of documentation to show that the notice was delivered in this way. They have to document the file some way. So if they send it by email, if they did it by automated phone call, they have to document the number that the call was placed to, when it was placed, and so forth. So they can't just say, yeah, we did it, and be able to prove it later. They've got to have some kind of documentation. Now, some insurers want to inspect vehicles every year at renewal. Regulation doesn't require that. They just have to have the car inspected once. But some insurers do want to inspect every year at renewal. So if an insurer has filed a plan with the state saying that they're going to do that, and they have to do it in a non-discriminatory manner, they can't just pick and choose who they're going to force this requirement on, they decide they want to do that, they have to give the insured advance notice. And that notice has to be sent out 45 to 60 days before the renewal date. If those time periods sound familiar, they should. The same time frame for sending out a non-renewal notice or a conditional renewal notice to a personalized insured. So, maybe they don't send a conditional renewal notice because they're not planning on dropping coverage, but they have to send one 45 to 60 days in advance saying, we want to inspect your car. And that notice has to inform the insured that they'll have to get the the reinspection done within 30 days after the renewal date. So you could send out the notice 60 days before the renewal date. The insured has to get the inspection done up to 30 days after the renewal date. There could be like a 3-month time gap here between the date of the notice and the date that the inspection actually has to be done. Now, if the insured doesn't get that notice out on time, are they stuck for a year? No. And this is a little bit different from the personal lines non-renewal and conditional renewal law. There's no late notices allowed for that. But in the case of vehicle inspections, there are. But what happens is that the insurer does have to then give a little more time to the insured to get the inspection done. So if they send it out late, they have to give them at least till 30 days after the renewal date, or 45 days from the date of the notice, whichever is later. So if a notice goes out a week before the renewal date, well, the clock starts ticking there. 45 days from the date of mailing, that's probably going to be well more than 30 days from the renewal date. So a late notice can go out, but the insurer has to give the insured extra time to comply. Those are the significant changes to Regulation 79. Like I said, there's a bunch of other changes in there that mainly apply to insurers and really aren't going to impact your day-to-day operations much, if at all. They're really rules that the insurers have to play by. There is a fully up-to-date downloadable copy of Regulation 79 on the auto insurance page in the Member Answer Center of the IABNE website, www.iabne.org. And so that text will be there for you to download anytime you feel you need to refer to the text of Regulation 79. And frankly, I get a fair number of questions from our members about the implementation of that regulation. So I get a feeling a lot of you might be deciding you want to keep a copy of that handy. So that'll be there for you to use. This video is there for you to go over the changes if you want to. And I hope this has been some help to you. Thanks for watching. I'm Tim Dodge.